All right, so this is actually going to be the second semifinals match we have for this Conquerors Cup qualifier. This is actually the third qualifier in the series, and this one is going to be Freshlobster versus one of the better names I've heard in a while, although Freshlobster is also pretty good, Biflosaurus. The 24-year-old Freshlobster is obviously quite well known on the LOR scene for his gameplay. He is from Germany, and I'm sure we've all heard of his winning ways by this point. Biflosaurus, on the other hand, is 21, also from the home country of PCS in France, and has very little Legends of Runeterra tournament experience. So it'll be interesting to see here if he can go ahead and take down one of the hardest opponents he's going to get in Freshlobster. And if you guys are interested in figuring out how to get yourselves an opportunity to compete in this Conquerors Cup and eventually the $500 prize that's going to be later on in August, check out the description below. You got everything you need down there for information, even some player information if you're interested in reaching out to any of the players. So don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, like this video if you do like the competitive gameplay, and without further ado, let's see some Freshlobster and Biflosaurus. Sometimes I can't believe what I'm actually saying in these videos. Let's see Freshlobster play Biflosaurus in the semifinals. And it does look like we have about another 90 seconds or so until the game is going to get started. So we're going to get into, again, Freshlobster versus Biflosaurus, which I got to say, if I had to choose a Poro over the other Poro, Biflosaurus, you got the name. You got me with the name, so I'm going to have to go with Biflosaurus. So I think I'm favoring Biflosaurus here in any matchup going through to the finals. But again, as casters, we're supposed to be unbiased, right?
I don't think that's written. Nobody told me that when I signed up to cast. They were like, by the way, you have to be unbiased. They were just like, casting. And I'm like, sick.
Is that a requirement? Do we have to have that on the resume? Unbiased caster?
I don't think so.
I really hope not.
I'm not putting it on the resume. I'm biased as hell. I see a deck I like. I'm like, yeah, I'm rooting for this guy. And
yep.
we have two possibilities here in this tournament. Either Lux Poros wins the event, or Freshlobster crushes shit's little heart and tramples over two Lux Poro decks into a victory.
Dude, why are you gonna say that, man? Why are you gonna do this to me? I literally, well, it's weird, right? Because having casted Freshlobster so many times, I really hope that he does well in this tournament. So the fact he's already in the finals, I'm good. We're able to cast Freshlobster in this tournament, so I'm pretty happy. So I'm just kind of at a weird spot, right? Like, do I want Freshlobster to win the tournament, or do I want the Poro deck to win the tournament with the cool name, Biflosaurus? Because Freshlobster also has a really cool name. And here's the wild card, though. Here's the wild card. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Lobster's stache. Okay? How can you not root for the stache? Like, that's my dilemma. How do you not root for somebody with that awesome of a mustache? And with that said,
I hate facial hair.
Well, you have facial hair.
I am 6.5 feet tall, and I look like a 10-year-old. You know how unattractive that is in every facet of reality? I need this. This is a necessity.
So that's just a requirement for you, so you actually look like you're grown up.
Yeah. A 6.5 foot tall 10-year-old is not. It's not a good look by any stretch of the imagination. I have to have facial hair. I literally can't shave this off. I would die.
I just wish. So what we should have, though, all right, it doesn't look like we have them in this match. Next to their names or whatever, we should have, like, I know he had the flags earlier. We should have like a little mustache next to the Lobster's name instead of a flag. He doesn't get his flag. He just gets a mustache.
So I just realized that we don't know what Biflosaurus looks like, and I'm just imagining like a massive handlebar mustache.
I'm actually, I don't know why, but just because there's Saurus in the name, I'm just legit picturing a dinosaur playing Runeterra right now, like with the little arms. Just,
I'm basically picturing Braum.
Oh my god! All right, so we have match 2 of the semifinals. back into the game. We have a precious pet. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Biflo. Use it, which Biflo also sounds pretty cool too, because like Biflo.
Yeah, I actually like that.
I kind of like that. So, anyways, Biflo dropping the precious pet down early, which is always good for the aggro or the aggressor. And Freshlobster actually going to be able to get rid of that with a sweet, sweet early thermo beam, which, like I was saying earlier, always feels good.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like you hate the Thermo Beam Precious Pet, but if you look at your hand and realize that that card's going to push a lot more damage than a 1-drop should, then you have to use it. I actually want to check Lobster's deck just to make sure that there is like a couple copies of Get Excited and things like that. Tools to handle the Crimson Disciple that aren't just Thermogenic Beam. We do see 3 Get Excited. We're not seeing any gotchas or concussive palms out of decks like this, anymore. The lists are pretty streamlined. We actually do see a single Static Shock out of Lobster, which I don't think we see in a lot of Heimer Vise, and that actually plays out pretty well for him in a matchup like this. There are a lot of 1 health units in this deck.
There really are, and this early Solitary Monk, which I think somebody said in chat earlier, which obviously we're on delay, so I couldn't really say anything then, but they mentioned, Heimer, it's much more balanced now that Solitary Monk is 3-3, right? I mean, I guess we'll see after this matchup, but then again, it's basically elusives versus elusives at this point, so.
Yeah, and we don't see a Heimerdinger for Lobster yet, but he does have that Vi, which is arguably, not arguably just as good in this matchup, but like it's fine. I'd rather have Vi than nothing, I guess. And we do see a Mystic Shot now picked up off the Shadow Assassin as well. So Lobster so far just finding all of his elusives really early on, and now is going to be able to clear out most of the board of Biflosaurus if he really wants to.
Yeah, and this will be a decent size attack for Biflo. But like you said, this Mystic Shot will probably deal with whatever's kind of left off that's not blocked as far as an elusive unit, and this Grenadier will probably just come through for the time being, maybe. I don't know. He might also want to block the Grenadier just to get rid of it and maybe let the Shadow Assassin through.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be killing the Shadow Assassin with the Monk so that you get the down trade and you hang on to your elusive, block out another Green Glade character, Green Glade duo, and then Mystic Shot the last one, just leave the Grenadier up. And this attack doesn't feel great for Biflosaurus, but you do still have to make these attacks.
Yeah, the only problem is, it does look like he's going to go with that block. I mean, you can save more health by doing it the other way around by 1, but I'm not sure. Again, I think it's more valuable, more valuable, like you just mentioned, to actually save your elusive unit for another block. So I think this is a pretty good play by Freshlobster.
Yeah, and now we see that Static Shot that we had mentioned earlier picked up, and Biflo has the Solitary Monk, the Navori Conspirator. If he had an Imperial Demolitionist, I would actually love the state of his hand because he has all these recycle tools alongside the Disciple. But picking up the Conspirator instead of the Demolitionist does mean that his hand is actually left relatively weak, and we're going to see a pass from Biflosaurus, not wanting to develop a board into this buy, and Lobster's just going to take the pass right back.
Yeah, this just looks really strong from Lobster. I mean, he's able to stay at a decent health total. He does have an elusive unit as a blocker just in case. Does have the Vi as well to start challenging some units. And lucky for him, Biflo also does not have kind of that combo yet with the Imperial Demolitionist that I was talking about earlier. Bouncing it back to the hand, getting multiple triggers with it. Because that's really one of the things that could really kill Freshlobster at this point. He does have another Mystic Shot to maybe kill it before it actually gets bounced one of these turns, and he might be forced to do that if that situation does come up, but we shall see.
Yeah, I don't really love Biflo's position. Lobster has done, a phenomenal job of finding his early elusives as well as his early removal suite. We've seen 4 removal spells out of him so far, if you're counting that Mystic Shot and Static Shock in hand, which line up beautifully onto Biflo's board so far. And Lobster, hanging onto that elusive, getting that down trade onto it with the Shadow Assassin. And just going to fire off this Static Shock, absolutely no fear. Is going to fall down to 11, but with that Shadow Assassin, or with the Shadow Assassin?
I think we've been saying so many card names. At this point, it's just like, wait, what is that name? I got to rattle off. There's just 5 more.
If there are 2 units with the same cost that do the same thing, you have to start with the same letter. I don't Shadow Assassin and Solitary Monk taking up the 3-drop elusive slot. Okay, diversify the names. Give me more Navoris. Okay. Why is it not Navori Monk? Navori Conspirator already bounces something to the hand anyway.
Actually, that's a good point. It probably should be Navori. I'm not gonna lie. But Static Shock. Can I just Static Shock's such a good card that very quietly. Everybody complains about Will and Shadow Assassin, some of these staple cards. Static Shock, I also feel is a pretty big staple card in the PNC class that is very good, but people don't seem to have a problem with it yet anyways.
It's pretty meta dependent. It feels great when it's good, but sometimes, you'll be playing against an aggro deck and it's like, oh, I have a Static Shock, and they have 2 Crimson Disciples on board. This just says take 4 damage, draw a card.
You mean that's not an even trade? Come on.
So I do want to touch on the fact that I really like Biflosaurus firing off that Decimate there. Anything that he developed with the rest of his mana is just going to get blocked out by the Vi and the Solitary Monk because of how the elusives in Biflo's hand play out. It's really hard for him to get the Solitary Monk and the Navori Conspirator on the field at the same time because you have to play the Monk, then play a unit, then play the Conspirator, bouncing a different unit. So just firing off the Decimate while Lobster didn't have Deny mana actually plays out really well for him here, and it looks like Lobster's going for broke with this Vi.
Yeah, I got to agree. And he knows, too, that with Lobster being on the amount of mana he has and the units that he has in his deck, there's a pretty good chance that he'll still survive a complete open attack with a ton of units like we're seeing right here. He is going to be put down to 6, but it doesn't really matter because he is going to have to try to put away the game as quickly as possible. The Will of Ionia. This is a card. This is why we were talking about it earlier. This basically right here just says prevent. Or, let's just go. It deals 8 damage. It's basically dealing 8 damage when everything's said and done. Prevents this 8 damage, or this 8 health from being healed. And not only that, the Vi would actually go back to the hand. But Freshlobster with the deny. That's like, I feel like that's just game at that point, right?
Yeah, Lobster actually has lethal on the following turn between the True Shot Barrage and the Mystic Shot.
Yep.
That's just lethal.
Dude, wait, does he have the... He has the mana. If he doesn't kill him with True Shot, I'm going to be very disappointed here.
Technically, it's better to play the True Shot first and then Mystic Shot after your opponent passes back priority.
I just hope he goes that route. I really do. I'll be so excited.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about, Bilfosaurus leaves open the Heimervii and gets punished for it. I don't think we've seen a player so far this tournament have, leave the Heimervii up and actually be able to pick up that win.
Listen, guys, there's a reason why everybody bans it. Like, it's just like an auto ban, which Ezreal Karma, I think maybe like 2 or 3 formats ago, wasn't that the same case where everybody just always banned it out, and if you didn't, you probably lost to it?
I mean, you always ban the Ionia PZ. It doesn't matter what champion, you just ban that one out. But I think Biflosaurus is fine with that loss. I think you look at Lobster's lineup, you understand that with your lineup, you're not necessarily favored against either Heimervii or War Mothers. You ban out War Mothers because your Crimson Elusives has a better shot at beating the Heimervii than it does the War Mothers, but overall, you're expecting to 2-0 this TF swing deck.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens here in this next matchup. And this is probably going to be a pretty fun matchup because we're about to see one of the Poro decks that we've been talking about pretty much the entire cast, as well as a deck that's around, like we've seen it before. So it's not necessarily an uncommon deck, but it's definitely not played as much as all this, Heimervii that we've been seeing, or some of the other archetypes, some of these aggressive Noxus decks and stuff. So this should be a pretty fun matchup.
I'm pretty concerned for Biflosaurus here. I think that Crimson Elusives might have been fine against the old Pilfer decks that we saw, the Sejuani versions, but because we've moved over to Swain and Ezreal versions of the deck, they're a lot more removal heavy than they have been in the past, and that was always sort of the weakness of the deck that you could pick on, was that in the Freljord version, there was almost no removal available to them. But, because we're playing Swain, we're playing a lot of damage-based removal. When we're playing Ezreal, we're playing a lot of targeting damage-based removal. And the deck out of Biflosaurus can be a little bit weak to that. You have Transfusion and Noxian Fervor to try and play around these things, and Lobster's hand is terrible, so maybe this works out.
Yeah, seeing Riptide early already feels a little bit bad. Having the Twisted Fate doesn't really have anything early to play here, and we do see the 1-drop come down from Biflo. So yeah, I think 100%. Not only that, Biflo has so many low-cost units, and he has units that will be able to bounce the Imperial Demolitionist on top of possibly even the Shadow Assassin if he really wants to. So, yeah, this is going to be a rough one for Freshlobster.
So with the double Make It Rain, it's not as bad. There are things that have 1 HP that you can kill. We see the Legion Grenadier, obviously the Navori Blade Scout, things like Green Glade Duo. The double Make It Rain cleans up a lot more of the board, and I think Lobster right here is going to go for this Make It Rain into the Ravenous Flock to save the 3 damage.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the other thing, too, with the Make It Rains is on future turns, because at this point he's going to have to play to a Riptide Rex most likely as quickly as possible. The Make It Rain will also help to set up a good Riptide Rex depending on what's on the board. So I do think this is smart to get rid of as much damage as possible. So he stays at 18 headed into turn 4 here. But again, we'll see if he can make it to this Riptide Rex turn.
I think he's got a pretty good shot at doing it. Now that we've kind of gotten into turn 4 and turn 5 on the following turn, now that you've got double Make It Rain red card available to you, there's no board that you can't clear out, and we don't see the Crimson Disciple out of Biflosaurus as the sort of punish for that. Typically, you can't afford to do these widespread damage, ping this, ping that, ping this other thing constantly over and over, because you're going to be eating a lot of damage from the Disciple, but Biflosaurus just doesn't find the punish for the weaker hand of Lobster, and I think Lobster, now that we've kind of gotten into this late game and he's preserved his life total this well so far, I think he's got a pretty good shot at winning this one.
Yeah, that Make It Rain into the Ravenous Flock I think was really big. It's not necessarily a trade that you want to take usually, but preventing that damage early on against an aggro deck is always super important. And as you look, you start to see how this plays out a little bit just by looking at Biflo's hand, and he has all these units with 2, 3, 1 health. A Riptide Rex later on, especially if something trades with one of these Yordles as they start to come down to the board, a Riptide Rex is going to destroy Biflo's field, especially if he doesn't get something like a Crimson Disciple. Might feel a little bit better if he's able to get that down at some point. But yeah, Riptide Rex coming down eventually in a couple turns is going to be huge.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if this is a board where Lobster says, I'm fine firing off the double Make It Rain and the Twisted Fate red card. And it looks like that is going to be the case. Maybe he goes for gold card into the Make It Rain, and it is going to be gold card to Make It Rain. Like, Twisted Fate just gives him so many options because he has the Make It Rain backup in a situation like this. And, yeah, oh no, he doesn't have, I'm like looking at the mana like he's got 4 mana. I'm like, maybe he even goes Make It Rain into Black Market Merchant, but he's only got 1 real mana left. He can't play the Merchant.
No, I really like this, right? Because I know you said red card, which would have also been a decent play, but I like this because it actually preserves more damage or more health on the side of Freshlobster. And I think, again, whenever you're playing, for anybody who's new to the game, if you're playing against an aggro deck, you actually have to throw most usual strategies out the window. Like, card advantage doesn't matter. Like, certain things just don't matter at that point. What matters is that number 20 staying as high as possible. And that's exactly what I think Freshlobster is focusing on throughout this entire game right now.
Yeah, and Biflosaurus just has, too many bounce tools in hand. We saw him with the Disciple, no Demolitionist last game. Now we see him with the Demolitionist, no Disciple. And so far, Biflosaurus, his deck has the potential to beat Lobsters. The answers just aren't really lining up for him. He's getting too many expensive units, too many low health units that pair well into the removal suite that Lobster has actually drawn. And this is what I was talking about with the TF Swain deck, because you don't feel necessarily inherently disadvantaged in any matchup. It comes down to the cards that you draw, the plays that you have available, and you can really just kind of fight out any matchup. And here we see a Noxian Fervor stolen. That's a card that Biflosaurus would have loved to have, even though it wasn't stolen off the top of the deck anymore.
Yeah, that Noxian Fervor is actually going to help Freshlobster a ton now. I mean, that's just another option to remove one of the elusive units as it eventually comes down. And that's what Biflo's having a problem doing right now, is getting the elusive units to stick. I mean, we only have the timer is ticking for this Riptide Rex turn. And Biflo knows it. He's expecting a turn 8 Riptide. You pretty much have to against a deck like this. And he just really is not able to get anything to stick. This will be... Not only that, this turn, Freshlobster is actually going to be on the aggressive. So there's a good chance that Freshlobster on an attack might be able to clear some of the board on Biflo's side. Depends on how much mana Biflo spends. I don't know if he's actually going to attack if Biflo keeps 4 mana up as he has now.
So I think what Lobster was going for there was trying to clear off some of the 3 attack units so that he could safely attack with his Yordle Grifters and feel a bit better about that. But since that was the worst possible Make It Rain for Lobster here.
Oh, the RNG gods not in his favor. It looks like he is still taking the open attack, even with the 4 mana up. This Twin Disciple or the Transfusion will likely come down. Yeah, this is looking bad for Biflo when he has to actually block some of the attacks from Freshlobster here. He might decide to keep all of the elusive units just so he can get maybe one good turn in, but the other Make It Rain in his hand. We were talking about the Make It Rains earlier. Like, the Make It Rains would, possibly combo with the Riptide Rex. He literally doesn't even need the Riptide Rex with how many Make It Rains he's drawn. He's just been able to stave off the aggression with only Make It Rains and a couple other pieces of removal.
Yeah, and we see Will of Ionia picked up. That's not a good top deck. Looks like
right now we only see Yordle Grifter.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it was a Shadow Assassin. So the Will of Ionia was drawn for turn. Shadow Assassin drew the Legion Grenadier, and yeah, still no Crimson Disciple for Biflo, and that's really the card that you want in a matchup like this. And I feel like Biflo, not finding any one drops outside of this Navori Blade Scout that he got down once and then just never got down again. This Navori Conspirator still hasn't been played. Like there was a bit of potential for Biflo to go for some demolitionist plays, but it feels like it's a little bit too late for something like that at this point. And Lobster going to fire off this Make It Rain, and softening up the Shadow Assassins earlier does mean this is going to clear out. Oh, it's actually just going to hit the exact same targets again.
All right, so at least he got or no, one of them hit the Nexus, because I think, didn't he hit the Solitary Monk before too?
No, he hit, because the Solitary Monk was still at 1
Oh,
HP.
it was still at 1.
Both Shadow Assassins in face didn't hit any of the 1 HP units, and it looks like the Make It Rains have their targets locked on these 2 Shadow Assassins.
Feels bad, man. I mean, he's still removing at least 2 elusive units, so it can't feel that bad. And we're headed into now turn 8. So that time has come. The countdown has ended. We will see a Riptide coming down probably next turn. We'll probably see a Noxian Fervor here on possibly the Grifter to get rid of one of these other elusive units to prevent a little bit more damage. Honestly, even if he took all of these, though, I think he's still in pretty good shape. But he's obviously still going to want to try to prevent as much damage as possible, probably killing this 4-2 elusive.
I feel like Biflo would actually, be a pretty strong contender for winning this game if it wasn't for that Riptide Rex in Lobster's hand. We see that Lobster's left with kind of a weak board. He's finally out of Make It Rains. Even if there was a Twisted Fate in his hand, it can't come down to get off that last red card. And now that all the Make It Rains are out of the hand, Biflo's looking like he's got a pretty strong board, but it's not going to do anything into this Riptide. It is just going to kill him on the following turn. Lobster has gotten through too much damage already, and that should be all she wrote here really soon.
Yeah, Biflo does recognize that the Make It Rains are gone, which is why I think he's going for the Navori Blade Scout. It is interesting to note that he does still have a Demolitionist in hand, so that is still 2 damage that he can go ahead and shoot off whenever he wants. He even has a Grenadier in hand, so there's still a lot of burn going on up there. But again, this Riptide, it might just be lethal, just having the Riptide come down and clear the board out. So we'll see how much damage Freshlobster actually takes here. Again, I do think we're going to see this Noxian Fervor come down on the Yordle Grifter and probably go ahead and hit this 4-2 Shadow Assassin.
Okay, yeah, the Will of Ionia makes sense. I ran the numbers, did a little bit of math, and I think this was going to leave Lobster at either 4 or 3, which would mean that a Demolitionist coming down puts him at 2, and that means after the Riptide resolves, Biflo would be able to play the Legion Grenadier and just win the game with the block. I think Lobster would have the opportunity to Noxian Fervor to prevent this, but overall, Lobster should be able to pick this one up just because he has this Will of Ionia and this Noxian Fervor available to him to get a little bit more damage off the board. Biflo might go for this Twin Disciplines here to push a little bit more damage and just kind of hope for a burn win off the top.
Yeah, if he does go with the Twin Disciplines, that were at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh wait, all right, well I guess it doesn't. Oh, and there's.
It would have left Lobster at 4, but because he's got the discounted Noxian Fervor.
Yeah. So now we're looking at 5 damage. That's going to leave Lobster at 9. So I think with the way that this turn just played out, with him still having to play the Noxian Fervor, I do think that Freshlobster will be able to take this home.
Yeah, there was. Oh, so if Biflo had actually gotten through the damage, then he would have had lethal with his Decimate off the top in response to the Riptide Rex. But now, because his board is so small, this Riptide is actually just going to be lethal.
Oh wow, yeah, it is. This is kind of a weird... All right, no, never mind. I was going to say, I just don't think I've ever seen it happen. Willing your own unit doesn't negate the Riptide Rex cannon barrages because they don't lose a target, right? Because it's still just then going to go straight to Nexus.
Yeah, just go straight to Nexus at that point.
Yeah, okay. That would have been a nice little outplay if that's the case. But we do see Freshlobster take it 2-0. Again, this is all 2-0s we've seen this whole entire top 8.
So you ever just make a prediction as a caster and then the player just blows you out of the water? I had said that either Braum Lux wins this tournament or Lobster tramples over 2 Braum Lux decks to win the tournament, but we didn't actually see the Braum Lux come out of Biflosaurus.
Oh, that's right. We didn't because he just won 2-0. That's kind of disappointing. I'm not gonna lie.
He just stuck with the Crimson Elusives for both games, so we're actually not seeing Lobster trample over. We might not see Lobster trample over any Braum Lux and still win the tournament.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, dude. If you jinxed it and it's Freshlobster ends up just creaming both of these Poro decks, I'm gonna be a little mad. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm gonna be more mad if he just doesn't play against the 4-0 deck and just still picks this one up.
Alright guys, and that'll do it for the second of the 2 semifinal rounds. As always, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you did enjoy this content. But as always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.